Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Naruto Found His Soulmate, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. They had minded to keep their hands away from each other while in public. It was rather uncomfortable though. Naruto changed the purpose of the walk from aimless wandering to grocery buying. Since Hinata had to stay with him for at least a month now, he needed more supplies. They didn't hold each other, but that didn't stop them from playing around. Naruto teased her and she teased back, smiles never fading. At least until the moment Naruto spotted a certain completely pale-skinned man, along with one of the lamest guys in Konoha, Sai and Lee. Naruto sighed, knowing that these two were the last thing he needed. He hadn't seen Sai in a while, for he had been off on plenty of missions that were rather time-consuming. He had to get past them though, since the grocery store was right behind them. Sai was the first one to notice them, since Lee was shouting something about the flames of youth, but no one seemed to pay attention. Sai raised his hand in greeting and Naruto raised his back. Hey guys, what's up? The blonde asked when they approached them. Sai smiled as he always did. He tried hard to really express emotions. He was trained by Anbu to have no emotions at all, and now, he tried to change that. It was hard for him to make the proper gestures and say the proper words in every situation. So, usually, he insulted people without feeling bad, emotionless indeed, but not a bad guy. Lee then noticed his two friends. Naruto-kun. Hinata-san. I can see the fire of youth burning bright in your eyes. What blessed wind brought you here this fine day? Lee said, punching the air in front of him and smiling. Actually, I need groceries, Naruto said, kind of used to Lee's strange behavior. Really? And who's that girl? Sai asked, pointing a finger at Hinata and smiling as he always did. Hyuga H. Hinata. Pleased to meet you, Hinata said quietly, looking down at her feet and bowing slightly. Sai didn't even move a muscle, he just kept smiling. Pleased to meet you too, Hinata-san. Sai said while scanning her up-down. His eyes fell specifically on her jacket. Sai, being the emotionless one he is, said, how can you be fat at the body and not at the face and legs? Really bad shape I must say, and Hinata blushed furiously, half of it for being embarrassed that someone pointed her figure that way, and half mad for calling her ugly, even not directly. Naruto noticed the irritation around Hinata and grabbed her arm before she could kiss Sai. The named one on the other hand just kept smiling. Sai-kun. I really believe Hinata-san has a better body than what she shows. The springtime of youth burns bright in her. Lee said, trying to defend Hinata, who blushed even more at the comment. Naruto groaned, knowing things might get ugly. Come on Hinata-chan, we better get inside. I'll tell you about Sai on the way, he whispered the last part in her ear so only she could catch it. She nodded and they both went inside the store. Chan. Since when Naruto-kun calls Hinata-san with a chan? I thought he only used it on Sakura-chan. Lee asked to himself, trying to remember since when Naruto used this suffix on Hinata. He usually used it for Sakura and only, wait. Now Lee's already big round eyes widened, if that's even possible. He smiled to himself and not being able to hold it anymore. Yosh. The flames of youth burn brightly today. Especially in the hearts of our two beloved friends. Lee said, his eyes filled with flames. Sai looked at him, his smile having not left his face. What are you talking about, S-Lesb? Sai asked, being oblivious to such emotions. Lee smiled at him, knowing an insult from Sai was not true, and gave him the nice guy pose and a thumbs up. You two shall find to one day, my friend. But now, the flames of youth burn bright in me. I have to take claim of my springtime of youth. I'll make 100 rounds around Konoha, and if I don't make it, I'll. Lee just kept shouting about what he was going to do, but Sai had averted his always smiling face at the store. I should think of a nickname for her, Sai thought. He had the strange habit of giving nicknames to everyone he knew, depending on their personality and appearance. He had already nicknamed Lee as Fuzzy Eyebrows, a nickname used by Naruto as well. But what could he use about Hinata? He raised a hand on his chin, his smile leaving and a thinking pose forming. Ink blue hair, lavender pearl eyes, shy, nervous. After much thought, he finally came up with something. Weirdo, he said, snapping his fingers and smiling again. Lee was already gone by now, and Sai had nothing to do than wander around Konoha this evening. Naruto and Hinata were wandering around the store, looking for anything eatable besides ramen. Hinata had requested that Naruto could at least try to eat something else besides ramen. Sakura had been at the store that day along with Sasuke. Her mother had invited him for dinner and they had to buy groceries, of course. Sasuke was more than willing to help her, but didn't show it. He still wore that same cold mask around anyone besides her. As she was mumbling something about a rotten apple, she noticed two familiar figures at the other end of the hallway. Down the hallway was Naruto, Hinata at his side, both smiling and teasing each other. Do we have to get vegetables? I mean, come on. Ramen is better, Naruto said, pretending a sad expression. Hinata giggled at this. If you manage to eat them, I'll let you have some ramen, she said teasingly, and his eyes gleamed in happiness. Yosh. Ramen, here I come. He said, punching the air and earning another giggle from the girl. You won't eat any ramen before though. No ramen before dinner, she said, raising a finger. Naruto raised his hand over his heart, pretending a sad and hurt expression. Oh Hinata-chan. You hurt me even by thinking that I would do something like that, he said, pretending a sob. Hinata gave him a friendly punch on the arm. She giggled and he laughed. They left the vegetables section but she could still hear their laughs and teasing behind the shelves. Sakura smiled. At least the rumors didn't seem to affect their friendship, and Hinata was somehow more comfortable around him. It was then that she noticed that Sasuke was staring as well, but his mouth was curved into a rare smile. He noticed the curious look on Sakura's face and couldn't help but chuckle at the pink-haired girl. What's so funny? Was her irritated question. He chuckled harder. Hinata seems to be more comfortable around him at times. When they are alone mostly. Haven't you noticed? She still blushes like a tomato and stutters when they are near others. The rumors are more than fake. The Dobe isn't smart, but he is at least trustworthy, Sasuke said, looking calmly at the spot the pair was a minute ago. Sakura only nodded in approval. True, Naruto was one you could trust with your life. He had never, not even once, run away from any battle unless completely forced to. After having paid for the groceries, Naruto and Hinata headed for his old apartment. It was surprisingly clean, and all his stuff was already there. Naruto mentally thanked Tsunade for moving all his items here so quickly. They couldn't let Hinata stay in the Hokage mansion because first of all, it was an obvious place to hide with such security around, and secondly, they didn't have a spare room. Laying the groceries on the floor of the kitchen, he turned to look at Hinata who seemed to just gaze around his apartment. It was so clean. The living room was decorated with a rather big couch and a 14-inch TV in the middle. The place wasn't big, it was rather small. But she liked it. It radiated warmth and welcoming her own home didn't. She felt more at home here than back there. The kitchen was small too. A dining table in the middle with 4 chairs. Naruto rarely had guests in his apartment, but in any case he had spare chairs. The rest of the kitchen was like any normal kitchen in any house, though it was clean, at the moment. The bedroom itself was again rather small. At the far wall was a bed with enough room for 2 people, small windows in a line right at the top of the wall. A small desk lied at the bed's right as the wall covered the left side. At the other end of the room was a wardrobe and next to it, a small door, probably the entrance to the bathroom. After having examined the apartment, she returned to the kitchen to find a smiling Naruto. So, how you like it? He asked, curiosity beaming from him. She only giggled. It's really nice, Naruto-kun, she said and wrapped her arms around his landing him a kiss as he stood up from the chair and captured her waist. When they pulled back, he smiled widely. Hinata-chan, we should go to your house to get some of your things right, he said. She groaned and pouted, showing she didn't really want to leave. He smiled again as he kissed her on the forehead. Come on, I can't leave you here, can I? He said more tenderly this time, meaning that she had none of her things here, but the word, made her blush a slight crimson. He laughed. She looked cute when she blushed, though she didn't do it frequently anymore. Yes, Naruto-kun, I need some things anyway, she said, kissing him one more time before they went out of the apartment and straight to the Hyuga compound. As they walked the streets, Naruto did notice some glares of disgust from the villagers. He sighed, knowing his new reputation would make things quite hard. Hinata looked at him worryingly, noticing his sad expression, she placed her hand in his. Naruto was shot out of his trance as he felt something warm in his hand. He looked down to see Hinata's hand in his, and then looked up to see her smiling face. Hinata-chan, he began, but she interrupted him quickly. I don't care, she said, still smiling and tightening her grasp on his hand. He just sighed and looked forward, though he couldn't help but smile. Many of the villagers that saw them hand in hand were even more disgusted. Naruto didn't even flinch though. He loved her and no one would tell him the opposite. His heart ached at the thought of her being married to Kakari. He had to do something, but what? What could possibly be done? Expect King Kakari cold-blooded. Oh. At that thought, he felt a little part of his Kyuubi self rise. Bloodthirst. He held it back though, the moment wasn't right to let it take over. Not now, not yet. She left his hand when they reached the entrance of the Hyuga compound. When she was about to open the door, it slid open itself, revealing an expressionless Neji, Hinata's cousin. Hinata-sama, have you come to pick your items? He asked and she nodded in response. He smiled. He had become a much warmer person in the last years after being defeated by Naruto. Hinata-sama, only I, the Hokage, your father and sister know where and why you will move in. I suggest you don't tell anyone in the compound or outside of it. Neji said, and she nodded with a smile. She turned back to Naruto. I'll be back in a minute, Naruto-kun, she said and walked in the compound. Neji's eyes were wide. She had talked in front of Naruto, without stuttering. Naruto in the meantime was just looking at the two Hyugas smiling. He noticed Neji's shocked expression though, and that made him chuckle. Is there something I need to know, Uzumaki-san? Neji said, regaining his serious composure. Naruto chuckled again, yep. First of all, she hates like hell her future husband. Secondly, he doesn't seem to give a s about her life. Thirdly, I'll give my life to protect her from that bastard. He doesn't deserve her, he nearly whispered the last part, but Neji's trained ear caught it. He smiled again. I see, Naruto. I'm sure you'll take good care of her. No one that knows you believes these new rumors. Neji said, laying an arm on Naruto's shoulder, and the teen grinned widely at the Hyuga. Oh, and one more thing Naruto, he added, his voice now serious as ever. Naruto gave him a questioning look. Understand that we need you to help her out of this. The elders want the marriage for reasons neither I nor her father know. She is happy with you, so don't ruin it, he said, and Naruto's eyes went wide. It isn't too obvious, don't worry. I knew about you two from the moment Hinata-sama was jumping around the compound, happier than ever. There's only one thing that can make her this happy, he said, smiling at the confused blonde, who, to Neji's surprise, nodded in understanding. Anyway, her father wants to see her determination. If she truly doesn't want this marriage, she will do something about it, sooner or later. In the meantime, take care of her, Naruto. Neji said, and walked back in the compound. Naruto didn't protest, nor said anything. All that was needed to be said was said. Now he only had to wait for the girl of his dreams to come out of this door. After around 5 minutes or so, he heard footsteps coming from the road. To his surprise, it was a somewhat angry mob. What the hell were they doing here? Look, it's the demon brat. He wants to seduce the heiress and take her away. Someone in the crowd shouted and they all shouted in agreement. Naruto frowned. What the hell were they talking about? Sure, some had seen him with Hinata, hand in hand, but that wasn't a good reason to kill somebody, was it? It looked like the mob thought he wanted to take the heiress away in order to ruin the Hyuga clan, and the villagers didn't like the idea, for the Hyugas were the most powerful clan in Konoha. He stood up from his sitting position to face them. What the hell are you talking about? He shouted back at the mob, you will demon. How dare you defile the Hyugas? A voice shouted from the mob. Naruto frowned again. He could kill all these people in the blink of an eye, but that wasn't an option. Hinata was trying to decide whether to take a few cloths of hers with her or not. She had already put a lavender kimono in her travel bag and some of her personal belongings. She then heard a commotion outside the compound and walked at her window to see Naruto facing a rather large mob of angry villagers. Naruto just stood there, his face still frowned, and you really think you will bring me down? Akatsuki couldn't, what makes you think you can? Naruto said, and this seemed to take them aback a little. Naruto's eye then caught something that made his nerves hit red. His enhanced vision due to the Kyuubi's power saw a figure behind the mob, hidden in the shadows of a store. Naruto barely made out a red outfit before another shout interrupted his observations. Ha! We will bring you down, brat. Demon or not, you are a stain in Konoha's future. Someone shouted and Naruto gave an angry glare at the mob, who gives you such right to judge? As far as I can tell, you are a stain in Konoha's past and present, Naruto shouted back, but the mob seemed to just get more angry. How dare you, brat? After trying to assassinate the heiress of the Hyugas and the heir of the Akake clan, you dare to call us a stain? Someone from the front row of people shouted, and Naruto's eyes went wide. So someone had spread another rumor. But he never did something like that. He never could. It seemed like someone wanted him out of the way, but Naruto couldn't do him the favor. Something clicked in his mind right then. He jumped at the window he knew Hinata's room was, and found it open with a shocked Hinata staring outside at the mob. He got in and closed the window behind him. It looks like someone spread another rumor, Naruto said, looking down sadly. All that he had worked for all these years has come to ruin in less than a month. Hinata nodded in understanding and noticed Naruto's sad face. She raised his chin with her hand and planted a tender kiss on his lips, making him blush lightly at the sudden affection. She smiled. Another fake rumor, she corrected him and giggled. But now, these fools down there want my head, Naruto said, irritated at the situation. Hinata smiled again. I want your head too. You're such a good kisser, she said, and after a giggle she kissed him again. When they broke, she noticed his usual sheepish smile. Well, let's get going. We have to get you settled in my place, right? He said, and she smiled widely at him. Picking up her travel bag, they were off from the window. They jumped out of the window and headed towards Naruto's apartment, avoiding the eyes of the angry mob that besieged the Hyuga compound. Of course, they had to get past an angry Neji, and that wasn't easy. A few minutes after their departure, they reached Naruto's apartment. He unlocked the door and they both entered. Well, you can sleep at my bed, I think I have a sleeping bag. He was stopped by a finger on his lips when he turned to look at a smiling, yet slightly blushing Hinata. Naruto-kun, this is your house. I think it should be better for you to sleep at the bed, she said, and Naruto shook his head, smiling. Don't worry about me. I can. Before he could finish, Hinata had crushed on him, pressing a kiss on his lips. He didn't lose balance though and hugged her waist as she circled her hands around his N. When they broke, he smiled widely as she did. Okay, we both get it, he said, and kissed her again. Indeed, this day turned out to be brighter than the sun. The rest of the day, after Hinata had dropped her items and made herself comfortable at Naruto's apartment, went by peacefully. Naruto of course had always his eyes peeled for any assassin or KPER lurking around while they walked the streets. He had sensed and spotted a few spies trailing behind them, but with enough agility and cunningness the pair always made it away. They finally found themselves at a park. The night was falling and the rays of the setting sun rained upon the bench they sat. The area was awkwardly free of people. It was only these two souls that sat on a bench, bathing in the light of the setting sun. The girl had become way more bold now. The truth is, most of her shyness came because of her crush on Naruto and the life of non-existing encouragement she had until she met him. Now though, with Naruto by her side, and her spirits bolstered, she wouldn't back down from some damn shyness. Yes, she still was a little shy and nervous around strangers, but her stutter was nearly gone along with the poking of her fingers, a nervous habit she always had. Naruto couldn't be more proud that she managed to break that goddamn shell that kept her true potential at bay. He was happy, for both of them. Hinata had leaned her head on his shoulder and sighed happily that she could finally touch him. He couldn't help but smile warmly at the sound. He had warped an arm around her shoulder while her hands laid on his lap. He couldn't decide which one was more beautiful, the scenery being bathed in orange light and the sound of the chirping birds at the trees around him, or the girl he held in his arms. He decided that the second was the best, for the scenery around him would change, go away. But she wouldn't, she would always be beautiful in his eyes, no matter where they were, no matter the circumstances. She soon had fallen asleep. He was getting used to this. She fell asleep in his arms quite usually nowadays. A soft M from her lips made his heart melt. He was missing this all these years, but now that he had it, he wouldn't let it go. The warmth of his body gave her assurance of security. The gentle embrace he held her in was like a shield, assuring her that nothing would pass in and harm her. She couldn't help but let her eyelids drop slowly, the magical scenery in front of her slowly vanishing, the chirping of the birds following suit. But the warmth and comfort never left, they were always there. Yes, this was a little piece of heaven. The night soon fell, the stars slowly replaced the fading orange of the sky, and the moon could be seen flying between the stars, bathing the land with its own magical pale light. He was in deep thought. All his life, all that he had done, in vain. He didn't have to strive for acknowledgement. It was always there, waiting for him in this pale lavender eyes. But the hardships he went through helped him become stronger. That was what fueled his determination. That was what made him what he is. He never imagined such feelings even existed before he met her. Before he really noticed her. She was the moon guiding him with her light in the night, he was the sun filling her with his warmth in the day. They both completed each other. His trail of thought was interrupted when he noticed the already fading light was gone, now replaced with a weak pale one. He looked in the sky. It was filled with stars, and the moon seemed to glitter as if it was affected by his own happiness. He lowered his gaze from the stars to the girl in his lap. He smiled. It was time to go home now. Sleeping on a bench would only mean a rough awakening. He lifted her gently in his arms and carried her bridal style home. As he jumped gently from rooftop to rooftop so he wouldn't wake her up, he looked back at the stars. The night was cloudless. Looking back forward, he finally reached the door of his apartment. He had to wake her up so she could prepare for bed. After he opened the door and closed it behind him with his foot, he gently laid her on the bed. He slowly stroked her cheek and smiled as her lips curved up. "Hinata-chan," he said, his voice low. He left a palm on her shoulder and shook her gently. "Hinata-chan, wake up," he said. Now her expression frowned for a second before it returned to neutral. Slowly, her eyelids opened to reveal a smiling Naruto in front of her face. She blushed slightly at the so sudden closeness, but it was barely noticeable even on her pale face. She had gotten much more used to him now. "Time to sleep," he said and stroked her cheek once more. She lifted her hand and placed it on his while it still lied on her cheek. She whispered. She slowly sat up as he stood up and went to his wardrobe. "Naruto-kun," she said softly and he turned back to look at her. "Yeah?" he asked, his eyes fixed on her. I forgot to bring sleeping clothes," she said softly even once more. He grinned. "Don't you worry. I've got some clothes here," he said, starting to search in the wardrobe while saying the last sentence. She looked at him, smiling as he tossed clothes around the wardrobe. "Here you go," he exclaimed happily, turning around and showing her two pieces of cloths. 1. A black t-shirt. It was rather big and she wondered if two of her would fit inside comfortably. 2. A pair of orange pants, rather big for her too. "You can change in the bathroom," he said, giving her the cloths. With a nod and a smile, she headed to the other room to change. His mind once more was lifted in thought as he watched her gracious movements while she walked towards the door. "Kami-sama," he thought to himself. She slipped out of the bathroom to find Naruto in a t-shirt same as her own lying on the bed, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. His clothes of course were big for her. The t-shirt reached down to her knees, even hiding the orange pants. His one hanged slightly down his thighs as well, looking somehow big for him too. He was around 10 inches or so taller than her. She slowly walked towards the bed. He heard her soft footsteps on the wooden floor and alleviated his gaze from the ceiling to her peaked form, walking slowly towards him. He smiled. She looked so cute and small in his cloths, making him to want to just hug and protect her like a small child. Another thought raced his mind. "Thank you," he thought, adding it to the previous one. She kept walking slowly and maybe a little hesitantly towards the bed. He smiled, noticing her slight nervousness. She saw him patting the room next to him, motioning her to lay down. She smiled and slowly slipped under the covers. It was surprisingly warm in comparison with the cold air around the room. She lied down on her pillow and hugged his form. He hugged her back, slipping an arm around her head and shoulder. She sighed happily as she laid her head on his chest, snuggling closer and closer while laying one of her legs above his, wanting to have all his warmth. He smiled, and snuggled closer himself. She was so warm and comfortable, like a nice, silky sheet. She could hear his heartbeat. Steady and strong. He was radiating so much warmth by her opinion, that he could melt an iceberg. It felt so nice. She let out a soft his heartbeat the last thing she heard, his warm hands around her the last thing she felt, before she drifted in a dreamless sleep. He smiled warmly at the sound of the He just couldn't help it. No one ever made him feel like that, so warm and happy. He lifted his head lightly to look at the sleeping beauty, half lying right on his side and half on his chest. He could feel her chest rise and fall slowly and steadily. Her silky ink blue hair shined dreamily at the weak moonlight that drifted in the room from the windows above. He lied his head back, and turned it slightly to the left and up, to look at the moon outside the window. Before the darkness could engulf him, he found out what was to say in his mind. Kami-sama, thank you, for giving me one of your angels, and with that, he fell slowly in the emerald dream. Dream world. As he drifted inside the hallways of his own mind, the landscape changed. Where once was a cold, lighted hallway now was a clearing, trees all around and the sun shining brightly above his head. He smiled. He walked out of the trees and sat in the middle of the clearing, observing the movements of the clouds. He just sat there and enjoyed the light breeze flowing around him. Suddenly, something orange and somehow red caught his eye. Down there in front of him at the end of the clearing and the beginning of the forest, a normal-sized fox appeared, its fur orange-red, its eyes, red. What the hell? He thought. The fox came closer. Not hell, Kit. Not yet, the fox said and chuckled. Naruto could recognize this chuckle everywhere. He stood up and pointed a finger at the fox. QB. What the hell? You should be S. Naruto shouted and the fox chuckled harder. I wish I was Brat. So I wouldn't have to stay in this stone you call brain of yours. The fox said and frowned. Naruto frowned and glared back. Why are you here? Is this just a dream? He asked, clearly annoyed. The fox seemed to shrug. Not quite. It's like the meetings you had in my chamber, but the landscape is different. As to why I'm here, well, let's just say that bee up there, the demon said, pointing the sky with its eyes, loves to play around with me. From what I got, it looks like the fourth seal held a part of my soul. I connected to it and I'm back. I never really SD, the rest of my soul, excluding the part held in the seal, was somewhere between S and alive. Coming back, I took that soul part back and now I'm here once more. Not that I like it, but as I told you, someone in the heavens must be laughing her sides out. The fox said and chuckled. Naruto paled. Oh my god. Now I'll have you back in my mind again. He asked, or rather shouted. QB looked up at the boy. You could say that. However, I will be free to roam in your mind now that the seal no longer exists. Oh. Before you ask, no, I can't take over you or anyone else. See, you've got my body power, my soul alone is just like a mind. To tell the truth, you've got all my chakra powers. But I think you should share. The demon said. Naruto now looked a little confused. Share? Share with who? He asked and the fox simply rolled its eyes. Anyway, I've been back for a day now. I saw what happened with that Kakari fool and I heard about the K of our mate, QB said seriously. Naruto frowned. Our mate? He asked. The fox just chuckled. Kit, we share the same body. I can see through your eyes and feel what you feel. Anyway, I've got something more to tell you before you have to wake up. The demon said and now Naruto looked confused once more. The demon chuckled at the funny look on Naruto's face. Since she is our mate, that gives us the responsibility to protect her, doesn't it? The fox asked, raising what seemed to be an eyebrow. The teen just nodded. I've got a way to help things out, Kit. But, I wouldn't tell you now. No, I want it to be a surprise till morning, the fox said and grinned widely, revealing its sharp and rather sly teeth. Naruto just stared at the fox, already used to such expressions. Surprise. Wait, it isn't something bad, right? He asked. The fox just chuckled. You'll see, Kit, you'll see, and with that, the world around the teen started to daze, fade away along with the grinning fox. The red eyes of the demon were the last thing he saw before complete darkness overwhelmed him. Slowly, he drifted back in the real world. His eyes not yet open, but he could feel the sunlight bathing inside the room from the windows. He could also feel something soft and warm on his chest, moving slowly, barely noticeably up and down. He slowly opened his eyelids. After the blur from his sleepiness shifted away, he noticed that the warm object on him was no other than Hinata, he thought and smiled. It seemed as if they hadn't moved an inch from when they fell asleep. Her head still lied on his chest, one of her hands hugging him from the waist while the other lied on his chest as well. Her body was snuggled right next to him, leaving no space between them while one of her legs was on one of his own. He smiled. She was so cute while sleeping, her lips being curved up in a tranquil smile, her long hair shining at the morning sun, her body warm and soft. He slowly stroked her hair, not wanting to wake her up. It was like he stroked silk, not hair. She let out a soft em, making his heart melt once more. How he'd wish such a moment would never end. Well, all good things come to an end, right? He felt her stirring ever so lightly. He stopped stroking her hair for a brief moment. Hearing a of annoyance, he smiled and started stroking her again. She could act like a child at times, relishing the touch of its parents. After a minute or so, she opened her eyes slowly. Realizing her position, she blushed slightly but managed a shy smile. She could feel his hand running up and down her hair, and it felt really good. Raising her head slightly so she could see his face, she couldn't help but smile at the sight of a grinning Naruto. "Rise and shine, beautiful," he said, making her blush a little. He loved to make her blush, it made her cuter by his opinion. "Good morning, Naruto-kun," she said and leaned forward slowly to catch a nice morning kiss. When she pulled back, they both smiled and she rested her cheek on his chest once more, letting a soft sigh escape her lips. He couldn't help but widen his smile. After they surprisingly managed to get up and part from each other, Naruto went to the bath while Hinata went to prepare some breakfast. She fought the urge to use the Byakugan while Naruto was bathing. After what seemed like a few minutes, the water she previously heard falling had now stopped. She didn't pay attention though. She kept frying some pancakes. She could cover them with some liquid chocolate she had found at his fridge. There was no doubt that he had never used this syrup before, though from the date it had on it, it looked like he had bought it a week or two ago. Getting out of the bathroom while having dried himself and wore another black t-shirt, along with a pair of his usual black pants, he smelled something really nice coming from the kitchen. He never imagined food could smell like that. It was like the smell itself guided his footsteps out of the bedroom and into the kitchen. Smiling, he saw Hinata still in his black t-shirt cooking some pancakes with the chocolate syrup on the table. He grinned and slowly and stealthily walked towards her. Before she could even flinch, he had warped his arms around her waist. All she could do was let out a small eep of surprise. Realizing it was Naruto who held her, she relaxed and let her head fall back on his chest. "Whatcha cookin', good lookin'?" he asked teasingly while staring in her eyes. A smile crept on her face while she closed her eyes. "Don't you scare me like that again," she whispered, and he smiled. "Or else?" he asked. She opened her eyes. "Or else what?" she asked, a little confused. "What will happen if I scare you again?" he asked back, still smiling. Now it was her turn to smile, and by closing her eyes again, "Then I won't let you have ramen for a week," she said teasingly. Opening her eyes once more, she saw the look of shock he had on his eyes and couldn't help but giggle. "You wouldn't?" he said in disbelief. "Yes, I would," was her solemn reply while she still giggled. "Okay," he said and planted a quick kiss on her lips before turning around to sit on a chair. She smiled and resumed cooking. Naruto in the meantime seemed to just stare into nothing. "Hey, Kit, have you told her about me?" He heard the voice of the demon, coming from somewhere in his mind. He grinned. "Yep," he thought. "Whoa, I'd love to see what happened. Wait, I'll just take a look at your memories later. Anyway, now there is another matter at hand," the fox said. Naruto frowned. What was about to talk? To tell the truth, he had told everyone the demon was though the villagers didn't believe him. Only Hinata and the Hokage knew about the demon's demise. Well, he thought the same until now. "You remember what I told you last night, right, Kit?" QB asked, and Naruto mentally nodded. "Good. Now that the seal doesn't exist, I'll be able to talk to you anytime." Anyway, what I wanted you to do was place a seal on your mate. Naruto now frowned inwardly and outwardly. What do you mean, seal? He asked mentally. The fox chuckled, don't you worry, Kit. Nothing bad. The seal will give her another inner coil system. She will have both mine and hers chakra, like you. The demon explained, and Naruto now looked confused. What was the demon talking about? Wait, what? You can share my power? He asked, confused. The demon chuckled again. First of all, it's my power since I was the first to have it. Secondly, no, she won't share the power. She will have it, just like you. It's a little complicated. Just do what I tell you, okay? Make our lives easier just for once, Kyuubi said and sighed. Naruto nodded and prepared. After a few seconds, several images of what he was supposed to do flied in his mind. After that, the world seemed to return, and the first thing he saw was Hinata's hand waving in front of his eyes. Naruto-kun. What happened? You just trailed off for more than a minute now, she said softly and worriedly. He just smiled. Nah, I'm fine. Just had a conversation with the fur ball, he said, smiling sheepishly. Hinata blinked a few times. Ano, Naruto-kun, who's fur ball? She asked shyly. Kyuubi was the only thing in my mind with fur last time I checked. Naruto said and kept smiling. Now Hinata looked wide-eyed, full of worry. What? But you said he SD, she said, stuttering a little thanks to the surprise. Naruto sighed, don't worry. Neither do I understand exactly how he's back, but I think it's for the best. He said seriously. She smiled and leaned forward to kiss his forehead. All right then. Here is some breakfast, Naruto-kun, she said and handed him a plate of wonderfully smelling pancakes. He smiled back. It smells really nice, Hinata-chan. He said while smiling widely, earning a slight blush from the girl. Thank you, she said, smiling back. After they finished breakfast, Naruto knew it was time to tell her. Both sitting on the couch, he turned his head to look at her. She had leaned her head on his shoulder, as if she was ready to drift back into sleep. Hinata-chan, he said softly, taking one of her hands into his, making sure she was awake. Yes, Naruto-kun. She whispered, I've got something to tell you, he said, and that seemed to catch her attention as she slowly lifted her head from his shoulder to look at him in the eye. What is it, Naruto-kun? She asked. He smiled sadly. Well, Kyuubi told me of a seal, he said, and her eyes widened. What kind of seal? She asked softly, her hand still in his. Well, it's kind of weird, he said, trailing off. After a few seconds she gave his hand a slight squeeze. He lifted his eyes to look at her smiling face. He smiled back and began explaining the whole situation. When he finished, he looked up from the floor to her face, awaiting a reaction. Sir, this seal will give me the powers of Kyuubi. She asked, half shocked, half worried. Yeah, but he said there is nothing to worry about. As long as he is here, he can control the chakra in you till you get used to it, he said, trailing off once more. Well, I don't love the idea, but, he was interrupted by a soft hand cupping his cheek and raising his face. He looked into this lavender pools, finding determination and understanding. If it is to protect me, Naruto-kun, I will gladly take it. She said and gave him a warm smile. He still looked at her with worry though. Are you sure? I don't know if there are any side effects or, he was cut mid-sentence from a finger on his lips. I don't care, she said. I know I can trust you, she added, giving him another reassuring smile. Very well then, he said and sighed. Lifting his hand from hers, he slowly lowered the cloth on her shoulder. She blushed lightly at this. Close your eyes and press down your chakra, he said, and she obeyed. He felt her chakra suppressing. When she closed her eyes, he brought his hands together to concentrate on the Kyuubi chakra. His hands flew through the seals the demon had shown him this morning, and when he was finished, he raised his palm and pressed it on the skin at the crook of her N, between the shoulder and the N area. Ancient Kitsune technique, 9 tails soul seal, he whispered and leaned in to kiss her. She closed her eyes and prepared for what was to come. She heard the sound of the air flowing as he flew through the hand seals. She felt his warm hand on her shoulder and heard him exclaim the technique. A second later, she felt something warm lips on hers, and after another second, warmth was coming inside her from his palm and mouth. She felt the warmth overwhelming her body, filling her. After a few seconds, The whole warmth was concentrated on her shoulder, and after a few more seconds everything stopped. She opened her eyes to find herself in a forest. She was in a clearing, trees spread around. She turned around to see a gigantic fox gazing down at her with its blood-red eyes. Hers went wide for a second until she realized who it was. This place looks cleaner than the kit's mind. I could get used to this, the giant fox said while looking around. KQB, said a soft timid voice from the ground. He looked down again at the rather small for his size girl. He grinned, revealing his sharp, rather sly canines. The girl just kept staring. Bingo, the demon said and started chuckling. Why are you here? She managed to ask finally. The fox stopped chuckling and looked at the girl again. Please tell me you're not as slow as the kit. The seal, remember, he said, and a nod was her response. Good. Well, it will be better to hang around with someone else than the kit. Go back now, enough time spent here already, the demon said and turned around. Soon the whole world went black. Opening her eyes slowly, she noticed Naruto looking at her with concern. Hinata-chan. Finally, you were asleep for a minute or two now, he said, letting out a sigh of relief. What happened? She asked softly. He raised his hand to lower the cloth on his shoulder, revealing a seal between the upper left side of his chest and shoulder. Hinata nearly gasped. The seal was the head of a fox, 9 tails seemed to swirl around it. She then noticed that she felt something warm on the area between her en and shoulder. Lowering her head, she noticed that she had the same seal above her left b, being a little more to the right, somewhat under her en. She looked up at Naruto with wide eyes. She smiled and launched on him, kissing him softly while having him with his back on the couch, her on top. When they broke apart, he grinned his trademark foxy grin and she smiled. That was good, a voice said. Both their eyes went wide as they sat up and looked around the room. But no one was there. They looked at each other again. Muahaha, it's really fun. I should have done it sooner, the same voice said. Shut up. They both said in unison. Naruto looked wide-eyed at a similar wide-eyed Hinata. Why, you heard him? He asked and she nodded slowly. Of course she hears me, Kit. I can be in both of your minds now or in one another's. Remember the seal. They both nodded while still looking at each other. Well, it doesn't just give her my powers, it also connects me to her, QB said, and now they relaxed a little. Wait, can she hear my thoughts? Naruto asked the demon. Hinata smiled and that was enough for him to understand. He thought, and she smiled even more widely. Don't swear, Naruto-kun, she said and giggled. He's so cute when he's confused, she thought, and now it was Naruto's turn to smile. I heard that, he said, and chuckled. She blushed slightly, somehow embarrassed. Oh God, they can hear each other's thoughts. That wasn't planned. Yeah, it seems like you can speak to each other mentally. There's also a way to keep your thoughts to yourself, of course. The demon thought the first part to himself while saying the rest to the teens. They both nodded and set up mental barriers. Not strong ones, they were meant only to give some privacy time whenever needed. Naruto smiled and leaned towards her to kiss her once more. She didn't resist and kissed back. Hey, rather strange taste, the fox said. They both mumbled a shut up in unison while kissing. When they broke apart, they knew life would get way more interesting now. After they dressed up, both in the usual ninja outfit, they decided it's best to head to the training grounds for Hinata to learn to control her new chakra system. Hinata had examined the seal with her Byakugan. It seemed to have its own inner coil system at first, but soon the system was dissolved and hidden within her. QB had explained that when she activated it, the chakra would spread in her, giving her his powers. She also had the passive powers now. She was far more resistant to illnesses and could heal really fast. She was more than happy to have this seal. It made her feel more complete. Now, she belonged to Naruto and he to her. They were two halves, making more than one. Of course, people shouldn't know about it yet, so her forehead protector was tied on her en as always, hiding the seal. Naruto didn't have to worry. His jacket hid it anyway. His seal didn't have a coil system at all, since he already had this coil system in him. It marked and sealed their spiritual attunement though. They reached a training area that was near a lake. The lake was rather big and it was probably used for practice in water jutsus, since some of them need massive amounts of water. The area was a big clearing with trees spread around. The coast of the lake was free of trees, of course. There were training dummies and target dummies spread around. There were also 3 logs in the middle. Naruto smiled, remembering the training area that he became a genin. It had 3 logs in the middle, but there weren't any dummies around and it had a river instead of a lake. Looking around, they noticed 2 shinobi sparring near the lake. Right, it must be Shino-kun and Kiba-kun. This is the training area we always come after all, Hinata thought, and the thought of course reached Naruto as well. They had found a trick to just suppress the private thoughts to themselves without the use of barriers. Kyuubi was rather surprised at this, but oh well, they were the first ones to be able to talk mentally, something that intrigued the fox to no ends. And they caught the trick really fast. Now they could say to each other whatever they wanted, without revealing anything they wanted to stay private. Yeah, but we can't practice the Kyuubi chakra with them here. It's too soon to tell anyone about it, Naruto thought back. She looked at him and smiled, nodding in agreement. They slowly approached the 2 sparring shinobis. Kiba dodged a swarm of bugs flying against him. As his feet touched the ground, he launched forward shouting, Gatsuga, swirling in a whirlwind of fangs and claws. Shino jumped out of the way, avoiding the attack and sent another swarm of bugs, only to be repelled by the still twisting Kiba. When the twist ended, they both heard claps coming from the left, the opposite of the lake. They looked to their left to see a blushing Hinata and a smiling Naruto, the last clapping his hands. Whoa, a hell of a fight. Too bad I didn't bring my camera, eh? Not that I have one, he thought the last part, and Hinata giggled at the comment. Oi, Naruto. Glad you're still alive, Kiba shouted back. Naruto smiled, thanks. Why's that though, dog breath? He asked, wanting to piss Kiba off, and he was quite good at it. Kiba frowned, you still owe me a rematch, he said, and Naruto's memory seemed to come back in a flash, remembering Kiba's rather unique defeat at the Chunin exams 3 years ago. The problem was, that every time he sparred with Kiba it always ended up as a tie, since he didn't use his Kyuubi powers. Naruto, I've heard some rumors about you being engulfed in a strange red chakra during battle. Is that true? Shino asked seriously as ever. Naruto smiled back, though it was a sad smile. Should I tell them? He asked, italics mean thoughts, okay? And Hinata just looked at him. I think they'll understand, she said reassuringly. He sighed mentally and looked back at the ninja, who asked him, well, Shino, have you heard the tale of Kyuubi? He said, smiling widely and sitting down, motioning him to do the same. After having explained the situation to his 2 friends, leaving the part that Hinata had the powers as well, Shino seemed to look down as if in deep thought, and Kiba was just looking at Naruto stunned. Whoa, cool. That's why you always smelled kinda like a fox, eh? Damn, at first I thought you hid foxes in your apartment, Kiba said and started laughing. Naruto frowned, shut it, dog breath. At least I don't have dogs all over my house. And no, I don't have foxes in my house. Naruto snapped back, but Kiba kept laughing at the image of Naruto surrounded by small foxes, trying to feed them all. The image of Kyuubi with big round puppy eyes pleading Naruto for milk made him laugh even harder as it passed by. Soon, he was rolling on the floor mumbling something like, Kyuubi, puppy eyes, milk. Between his laughs, Naruto couldn't help but chuckle back in happiness at his friends. Shino just nodded in agreement, and if one could watch closely enough, he could see a smile under his high-collar robe. Hinata in the meantime was giggling as Kiba kept rolling on the floor. Something was missing though. Shino-kun, where's Akamaru? She asked worriedly. Shino just lifted his gaze behind his sunglasses at her. Akamaru was injured at the last mission. He will be fine in a day or 2 though. Till then, me and Kiba just spar now and then. Shino replied seriously, and Hinata nodded in understanding. Well, imagine Sakura and the others if they hear about this, Naruto thought, and Hinata threw him a smile. Kiba in the meantime had stopped laughing and was now standing near Shino, facing the other 2. So, Naruto, want to spar? You still owe me a rematch, fox face, Kiba shouted, raising his fists. Hinata giggled at the new nickname while Naruto smiled, anytime, dog breath, he said, and they were off nearby where there were no dummies or trees. Shino just leaned down on a tree, looking a little tired, and Hinata just joined him. I still find it hard to understand where Kiba finds all that energy, Shino said tiredly. Hinata giggled again. Well, Kiba-kun and Naruto-kun are the most hyperactive ninjas of Konoha, she stated and giggled again. Shino raised an eyebrow under his hood and sunglasses. Hinata seemed to be way too happy lately, regardless the fact that in a few weeks she was going to marry someone she didn't like at all. She had told him about this, what really happened with Naruto and Kakarei, and Shino, well if he didn't have the coolitude of his, now Kakarei would be nothing but dust. Still, she also seemed far more comfortable around Naruto lately. That really caught his curiosity, but being Shino, he didn't mention it. Naruto and Kiba seemed to spar for around an hour or so, and in the end, they were both panting heavily. Like always, the fight was a tie, without Naruto using his Kyuubi power of course. Hinata and Shino knew the situation well. They would spar, throw swears at each other while fighting and in the end, while seeming exhausted, they would jump right back up after a minute or two and keep on arguing who was the winner. In the end, Hinata or Shino had to interfere, trying to calm them down. After another hour, Shino and Kiba left. Kiba protested on Hinata staying with Naruto, but they told him that they had to do some special training. Neither Kiba nor Shino pushed the matter and left. So, Naruto-kun, how am I supposed to control the chakra? Hinata asked softly. They were both sitting by the coast of the lake, staring into nothing in particular. He was shot out of his trance and looked in her eyes. Well, Kyuubi told me that I just have to pump a little red chakra in my eyes in order to trigger the rest of the power. I'm not sure how it works with you though, he said and looked down again in deep thought. Hinata joined him, thinking of ways to activate her new bloodline. Try the Byakugan. You pump chakra to use it right. Try to focus on your alternate coil system first though and then use your bloodline. They both heard the Kyuubi saying. The teens both nodded in agreement. Hinata closed her eyes and started to focus inside her. Searching deep in herself, she could sense her normal chakra system circulating chakra across her body. The sensation became stronger and stronger as she reached the inner coil system. There, she had to try and sense the red chakra coil system, and try to pull chakra from it. After a few minutes, she could sense something evil, warm, yet powerful lurking inside her. Yes, she expected to feel evil in the chakra. The Kyuubi was a demon, what did you expect? The fox had assured her though that as long as he was here, the chakra wouldn't harm her. In time, her body would get used to it like Naruto's had, and she wouldn't need his help to maintain it. Searching closer and closer, she finally found the alternate inner coil system. It looked locked for now, pulsing lightly with a faint red light. Try to unlock it. The demon said in her mind and she obeyed. Slowly and carefully, she focused on the coil system. Suddenly, it burst open, allowing red chakra to rush out of it, replacing her normal blue one and filling her with power. She opened her eyes. She felt far stronger now, as if all her strength was renewed. She could feel her normal system being closed, leaving the red chakra to take charge. She didn't lose herself in it though, neither did it harm her. The demon was holding the side effects back, until her body would get used to it of course. She felt so much stronger. And warm. It was like the chakra was fire itself, not burning but warming. Looking around, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She then looked at Naruto, who gasped in surprise. He was looking at her wide-eyed. What's wrong Naruto-kun? She asked softly. He mumbled something, shook his head and looked at her again. Your eyes, he began. He couldn't believe what he saw. It wasn't fearful, hell no. Instead, he kind of liked it though it looked dangerous and threatening. If it wasn't Hinata, he would run for his money. Your eyes, he began, are red. He added. She gasped and stood up to look at her reflection in the waters of the lake. Looking at her reflection, she saw the usual pale lavender color of her eyes being replaced by a demonic crystal blood red one. Activating her Byakugan, she gasped in awe. The demon was amused himself. The combination of these two bloodlines was powerful beyond imagination. The Byakugan provided 360 degrees of sight, made the chakra system and tenketsus of someone's body visible, as well as the inner coil system. Naruto's bloodline, though, provided a powerful second inner coil system. This could make any Juken user fall to his knees. Juken relied on damaging one's chakra system and closing the tenketsus from where the chakra came out of the body. But the red chakra was different. It couldn't be damaged by normal chakra, and even if the tenketsu was closed, one with enough chakra control could reopen it with a small burst of red chakra. Thus, The Hyugas stood no chance against an Uzumaki, in this case, Naruto and Hinata. She couldn't believe what she saw, because she could see everything. The power of the Kyuubi chakra was unimaginable. She could see far away even at the gates of Konoha, which were a good 1 or 2 kilometers away. The usual light blue color that the world usually turned into when she used Byakugan now was a light red. Looking at Naruto, she saw his system. She looked closely with her red chakra enhanced sight, and could see behind the basic inner coil system the demonic one. She smiled. It's wonderful, Naruto-kun, she said softly. He smiled back, really? He asked, already knowing the answer of course, for he heard her screaming in her head that she could see even the main gates of Konoha. I wonder what kind of kids you two will have, the demon said, and they both blushed, muttering a, "Shut up, Kyuubi," in their mind. They both chuckled. So, now you can use the chakra? He asked. She looked down to the ground in front of him without lowering her head, and released her Byakugan. Her eyes were still blood red, but he didn't mind. His went blood red too when he used it anyway, though he had pupils when she had none. I'm not sure, I mean, I had to focus really hard to open the demonic system at first. She said timidly. He walked up to her and left his palm on her shoulder. Don't you worry. Now just press the chakra back, he commanded, and she obeyed. Slowly, the red chakra faded and her eyes turned back in the usual lavender color. She could feel the power fade away and being replaced with her normal chakra. Now, focus chakra once more. Try to catch what you felt when you awoke the red chakra the first time. She nodded and started concentrating her chakra. The whirlwind around her was blue, no success. Well, we still have the rest of the day to practice, Naruto said cheerfully, and she smiled back. A few hours later, it was time for launch. Hinata managed with her already extreme chakra control, for she was a Hyuga, to unlock the power very quickly. Naruto couldn't be more proud. When the time to use it came, she found out that her Juken was at least 100 times stronger. The chakra pulsing from her palm could bring a tree down with one strike. She also practiced on other techniques. Her Haka, Divine Spin, was far more powerful too. The chakra that surrounded her covered a bigger area, could also burn anything that touched it, and when she finished the spin, the ground around her was so hot that smoke rose from it. She was smiling too, proud of herself. They were making their way to Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto wanted to celebrate her new powers with ramen, and she couldn't resist the cute pouting face he put on, pleading her to accept. She had giggled and accepted happily. When they sat at the stools facing the counter, they both ordered their meal. Hinata blushed deeply when Ayami asked if she was his girlfriend, and she blushed even more when he said yes and crossed an arm around her shoulder, though through the embarrassment, she couldn't help but feel happy. So, Kyuubi, is the seal removable? Naruto asked, and he could hear the chuckle of the demon in the back of his mind. Hey, sorry Kit. You're welcome to try and remove it if you want anyway. Though nothing will work, if I know you well enough. The seal is one of the most ancient ones among the kitsunes. You should be proud to have it, by the way. The demon said, chuckling again, so there is no one who can remove it. Not that I complain though. The red chakra is far more powerful than the normal one, Hinata said with a giggle in her mind. Naruto turned to look at her and smiled. Well, there should be 1 or 2 people in the world knowing how to remove it, but they are God knows where. So, don't complain and live with it, the demon said seriously. Naruto and Hinata just kept smiling though. Gladly, they both said in unison and leaned in for a kiss. Out ofn, remember, italics mean that they are thinking it, not saying it out loud. In the meantime, a block or so away from Ichiraku, Sakura walked towards Naruto's favorite ramen stand for lunch. Sasuke was out training and she had the day off from her training with Tsunade. She knew Sasuke had feelings for her, though he didn't admit a thing, and she just kept playing dumb, relishing every moment and waiting for him to confess. It was so much fun watching Sasuke blush. The day was quite boring. Maybe if she found Naruto there she could ask him on a date, just to tease him. Sakura still believed Naruto had a crush on her, thus asking him on a date would mean an immediate yes, and lots of fun later on, with Naruto doing every silly thing that can come in one's mind, and Sakura beating him senseless. Yep, it was a good way to relieve her stress, and she smiled proudly at herself for coming up with it right now. Walking towards the ramen stand, she noticed a certain blonde coming out of the stand. She smiled proudly at herself and walked towards him, while he was focused on the clouds. Naruto had finished 3 bowls of ramen in a minute. Hinata ate slowly her own ramen, smiling inwardly at the rapid way Naruto ate. I wonder if he would ever drown from ramen, she thought, and noticed that Naruto stopped slurping and looked at her, smiling when he devoured the noodles. If I would s from ramen right now, I would s a happy man, he said, placing his hand on her shoulder, earning a slight blush. He then chuckled, imagine it. Konoha News, the Hokage SS, reason. Drown in his bowl of ramen. He said, and they both started chuckling at the thought. Kyuubi chuckled himself. They could hear his chuckle in the back of their minds, and Hinata was quickly getting used to its presence. Well, I'll go out to get some air. Finish your bowl at ease, I'll be outside, he said with his usual grin on his face. She smiled and nodded, returning to eat. He walked out of the ramen stand, looking at the clouds, thinking that life couldn't be better at the moment. Sakura slowly walked up to Naruto. Hey, Naruto. She chirped. It was then that he noticed her and a smile crept up his face. Hey, Sakura-chan. He yelled back. Sakura, in the meantime, hadn't noticed the ink blue-haired girl sitting at the stool behind Naruto. Naruto. I have nothing to do today, Sakura said, pretending to be sad. Naruto grinned. Hinata-chan, look who's here. He said in his mind. Hinata turned her head around to see the pink-haired Kunoichi smiling widely at Naruto. Sakura-san, she said back and smiled. Naruto now didn't have a crush on Sakura, but he was always protective around her like a brother would. And, Naruto said, motioning her to continue. Sakura blushed a little, since it was the first time she was going to do it to Naruto, even if it was just for fun. See, would you like to go out with me? She asked, looking nervous. Naruto smiled while Hinata silently gasped, sure thing Sakura-chan. He said, and Sakura looked up smiling, this is going to be fun Hinata-chan. He said in his mind. Bring Sasuke with you if you will. I've got some catch up to do with the team. He said cheerfully, his usual grin on his face. Sakura looked at him wide-eyed. Bring Sasuke too. What was going on? Naruto was seeing for a date a few weeks ago. What had changed? Well, her fun wouldn't be interrupted. She could still beat him senseless, and Sasuke being around would make Naruto give her more reasons for a beat-up. She smiled innocently. Sure thing, she replied. Naruto grinned even wider. Hinata-chan, can you come in from the corner? Let's play a little act, shall we? He said mentally, and could hear a giggle from Hinata in his mind and the chuckle of the Kyuubi. He pretended he looked around aimlessly, but he noticed that Hinata was already gone from the stool. He smiled. Looking back at the corner of the road, he noticed her coming in the scenery. Hey, Hinata-chan, he shouted, pretending that he was surprised. Remember to stutter ne. He said, and another giggle was her mental response. Naruto-kun. Hi, she replied, looking down as if in embarrassment. Hi, Hinata. How you doing? Asked Sakura. Hinata looked up at the pink-haired Kunoichi. I'm fine. She said timidly. Naruto now grinned widely again. Hinata-chan. Have you got anything to do today? He asked. They both knew they didn't have anything special to do today. Missions were out of question. This month was a rather calm one. The Rookie 9 had little work this month, but the previous one which was full of exhausting missions. Now, the only missions existing were low-level ones. Not really, Naruto-kun. Why do you ask? She said shyly again, playing with her index finger in her old nervous habit. Naruto smiled. Well, me, Sakura-chan and Sasuke are going to hang out for dinner. Wanna join? He asked happily as always. Then, in Hinata's mind, some very, let's say not innocent pictures rushed in and she blushed furiously. She shook her head and mumbled the reply, still trying to recover from the shock of the pictures. I'd love to, Naruto-kun, she said, and looked up to see a smiling Naruto and a grinning Sakura. Great. We will have a hell of a time. Though Sasuke is rather boring, Naruto said, mumbling the last part, and thankfully Sakura didn't hear him, though Hinata did and giggled. He looked back at Sakura. So, Sakura-chan, can you go pick up Sasuke? He should be finishing with training right now. Oh, and tell him that if he doesn't come he leaned in to whisper the last part to Sakura, who started giggling. Really? she said, and Naruto nodded while grinning. Okay, see you later then, she said while running off to the training grounds and waving goodbye at both of them. When she was out of sight, Naruto turned to see a smiling Hinata. That was great, Hinata-chan. You even pretended the blush, he said proudly. Hinata shook her head and now a worried look crossed her face. Naruto-kun, I didn't force the blush. Some pictures came in mind, she said, looking down at the last words. They could both hear a certain demon lord chuckling at the back of their mind. That was really funny. You should thank me. Her blush is essential in the act, you know. Since she doesn't blush that easily around you anymore, well, I gave her a motivation. They could both feel the Kyuubi chuckling hard and grinning widely. Naruto sighed. Ero Kitsune, perverted fox, he thought, earning a giggle from Hinata. So, Hinata-chan, what you want to do until dinner? He asked, throwing her his usual foxy grin. I don't know, don't have anything to do really, she said, raising a hand on her chin and looking down in thought. Let's just hang around then and we will find something to do eventually, Naruto replied. She nodded in agreement. Wow, it's the first time the kid says something clever as long as I can remember, the fox said. Shut up, was mumbled from Naruto's lips and both Hinata and the Kyuubi chuckled. Well, Hinata giggled, but soon Naruto followed the fox in the chuckling. Shooting one last smile at each other, they left the area to find anything interesting around Konoha. From the moment he learned he could mentally talk to her, they were constantly speaking to each other mentally, keeping their private thoughts to themselves and telling the other whatever they wanted. Like a normal conversation, though it had no words and no lip movement. Anyone who could look at them while they were mentally talking outside Ichiraku could think they were crazy since they made expressions and motions but not a word was heard. Naruto loved this. He could speak with her anytime he wanted, without letting the others know what they were talking about, thus making their relationship even harder to find out. And tonight at dinner, they would have so much fun. Walking around the streets next to each other, they didn't need to even look at each other to speak. The villagers, as always, were shooting glares of hate, mostly at Naruto, and glares of pity at Hinata. But both of them didn't even bother to notice, since they were lost in their own little world. Naruto was mostly talking about his favorite flavors of ramen since there was nothing else to talk about, and Hinata could just listen and give her opinion. Naruto asked her to cook ramen at some time. If the pancakes he ate this morning were that good, then imagine ramen from Hinata. She couldn't help but blush a little. While walking aimlessly, they reached the main street of Konoha, where of course was the market in rush hour. They had to struggle to not lose each other in the crowd, though their mental connection made it easier to find each other. Soon they made it to a bench at the side of the road and sat down. Naruto sighed, finally free from the crowd. Hinata was just sitting next to him, avoiding to show affection in front of so many people. Unknown to them, a certain red-haired and very annoying man was watching them from a rooftop. Flashback. What the hell you mean you didn't find her? Asked an angry male voice from the darkness. There were 4 people this time in the dark room, which was lightened slightly by a lamp hanging above the table. The shadows hid the features of the figures, allowing them to see only the shadows of each other. I mean that, she must not be at the compound anymore. I haven't seen her for a day, so I am not sure. Neither her father nor anyone else knows or tells me where she is. A female voice calmly replied. The male seemed to calm down a little, sitting back on his chair. You understand that we have to finish this before the end of the month. It will be too risky to attempt that day, the male said, pointing the word that. The female figure seemed to shrug in the darkness. I don't know. That blonde monster though seems to be around her all the time, she said. The male frowned, though it wasn't noticeable in the weak light. Damn it. I thought my photos would have him at least forbidden to even look at her. Or even better, having him executed. What the hell is the Hokage doing? The male snapped angrily. The female started to laugh out loudly. You tried things with the photos. Exclamation mark. Oh. My god, how stupid can you be? The female said between her laughs. He sat down mumbling some curses. Why would you say that? He snapped back. She composed herself and cleared her tea. First of all, this boy has gained the reputation of protector in the last years. Anyone who knows him, especially his friends and the Hokage, would never believe your pictures. The Hokage sees him as a son, while his friends know they can depend their life on him. The villagers already hate him, so neither he, nor the Hokage will give a damn. She said, and at that, the male was taken aback. Then what the hell should I do? He's stronger than anyone in this damn village, he shouted. The female seemed to just shrug, try to just grab her and run. There is no way you can face him in combat. No one can. Not after the Akatsuki was defeated. Find a moment when he lets his guard down and just take her and run, hide somewhere and wait for a few hours for things to settle down. When they do, get her out of the village and do whatever you want with her. All I need is the girl out of the way, she calmly replied. End flashback. So they were just sitting there, looking at nothing in particular. He noticed them giggling or smiling, for no obvious reason. Were they mad? No words escaped their lips, yet it seemed as if they had a conversation. Damn demon could twist minds that easily. He frowned and waited. So, Kyubi-kun, how much red chakra do I have? Hinata asked softly. The demon just rolled his eyes. What a question. Limitless, of course. The only thing that binds you is your body strength. You can use as much chakra as your body can take. If you overdo it, then you will just get injured. The kid over here can stand much use of it, since he has this ridiculous stamina and chakra capacity. If he only hadn't a brain, Kyubi sighed, earning a giggle from Hinata and a frown from Naruto. What's that supposed to mean, furball? He asked. The Kyubi chuckled, mumbling nothing. Oh, by the way, kits, there is an annoying redhead staring at us, he said, and both teens frowned. Yeah, I noticed him too, but thought he was just passing by, Naruto said, and Hinata nodded. They didn't turn the gaze towards him though, so that he couldn't see they knew. Hinata lowered her head and her long hair along with her bangs hid her eyes. I'll take a look, she said, and silently activated her normal Byakugan. Scanning the area, she saw a red-haired and red-dressed man on a rooftop across the road, hidden behind some laundry. Kakari, she said in disappointment, and revealed his position. Naruto frowned again. Damn bastard, what he wants now? He asked, and Hinata shook her head. I don't know, but he doesn't seem to move. He just stares, like as if waiting for something, she said quietly, and Naruto turned his head to look at her. He frowned again. He then started explaining what he had seen when they were outside the Hyuga compound. About that smirking figure behind the mob. He also told them that during the fight, Kakari had far more massive amounts of chakra than usual, so he used a complicated seal to bind most of it, rendering it useless unless the seal was broken, which was quite hard. It's as if he wants me out of the way, but why? He asked and raised his hand on his chin as if in thought. Kyubi then flashed both of them images from the fight with Kabuto. They were the last images he had from Naruto's mind before he was put in mid-death state. Realization hit them. Kabuto didn't even really try to K him, though he would do it in the blink of an eye. He let Naruto just knock Kakari out of the battle, thus making a good excuse for not killing him. Also, he and his men didn't even flinch when Kakari was boasting. Not to mention that Kakari used a low-level attack on them and started panting, making an excuse that Kabuto made it to beat him so bad that easily, and also explaining the fact that Kakari so free-willingly gave Hinata to them. All the pieces were fitting in the puzzle. But they needed real proof, something strong enough to let them K Kakari. Oh yeah, they both wanted it so badly. Kyubi could even shiver at the king intent they had on this man. So, he wants me out of the way to get Hinata-chan. But he isn't strong enough for combat, so he tries to destroy my reputation so that I will just be kicked out of the way by the village. That fool, I knew he had more chakra than what he showed us at the battle with Kabuto. No one can have that little chakra, for if they had, they could hit the ground after a simple jutsu. Please Kami-sama, let me K him. Naruto thought, slapping his hands together and looking up, pleasing the heavens. Hinata sighed mentally. She too wanted Kakari's. Yes, it wasn't really in her nature, but she didn't feel much like herself lately. She felt stronger and more determined. Maybe it was that she had the red chakra. Maybe it was because this power was always Naruto's too. So, they were sharing a very unique bond right now, and that gave her a very good reason to stand and fight. No red-haired fool could take her Naruto-kun away now, would he? Of course not. Or else he would just be sent flying by a Hojuken, Fire Gentle Fist, named like this from the red chakra, in the chest, and she would make sure he wouldn't get up any time soon, maybe for the rest of eternity. Yeah, that sounded good. During their training they didn't only practice the red chakra usage. Kyuubi also helped her develop the Hojuken style, a style very similar to Juken but a little bit more aggressive, taking advantage of her natural flexibility and the power of the red chakra. She wasn't really good at it yet. It was a whole new style in development but she loved it. It gave her much more freedom in movement, taking full advantage of her flexible body and fast movements. Normal Juken strikes could make you beg for mercy. Hojuken, well, let's just say that most people aren't supposed to survive after one strike, so begging for mercy wasn't in the list. Hinata, of course, not being a merciless cold-blooded cur, minimized on all the power of the red chakra. But now, she could gladly land a full-force Hojuken strike on Kakari's head, and would love to see it flying off to the distance. Naruto caught an image of what she was thinking and shivered. Yes, the bond seal also allowed them to exchange images. They weren't good at it yet, they still had to work on it. But the image of Hinata blowing off Kakari's head, well, let's just say he promised not to ever piss her off. Kakari noticed their sudden change of behavior. Was he seen? Why didn't they react? Why didn't they look at him? Not wanting to take any chances, he left the vicinity, leaving him alone, for now. Hinata sighed in relief. He's gone, she said, and Naruto sighed along in relief. That man made his stomach turn in combs. The Kyuubi was chuckling. So, what are you going to do about this problem? He asked, and the teens looked at each other. Well, killing him right away would look like We need proof, Naruto said and looked down in disappointment. What solid proof could they find that Kakari was aligned with Kabuto's researchers? Maybe he had a letter or something on him. There was only one way to find out. They both stood up and walked away from the bench. Soon, they seemed to be walking aimlessly around Konoha once more. Naruto motioned her to follow, and they jumped on a rooftop. Use your Kyuubi Byakugan, Hinata-chan. Kakari mustn't be far, he said, and she nodded. Forming a hand seal, she whispered Byakugan. She then activated her Kyuubi chakra and her eyes went red. After a minute of looking around, she gasped. "En Naruto-kun, he's, she mumbled, still shocked. Naruto looked at her with question evident in his eyes. What is it, Hinata-chan? He asked. She shook her head. He must be spreading rumors again. He's talking to a big group of people at a park, around 450 yards away from here. She said softly, and he nodded. Let's go then. He said, and they flew off towards Kakari. They reached a rather abandoned park. The leaves from endless springs and summers were all around it. The trees looked old and bad in shape and the grass overwhelmed it. The bench looked quite old, though it could still manage some weight. They silently hid in the trees while everyone's attention was on Kakari's speech. Behind the leaves, if one could look carefully enough, he could spot two shadows watching the conversation. But, Kakari-sama, you know we don't stand a chance against the demon. A man shouted. Kakari seemed to ignore him though. Don't you worry about him. When we separate them, some of you will just keep the demon busy while the others will take her. Kakari said, full of confidence. Don't worry about the girl. My information says she is no threat. Everyone knows she's weak and easy to manipulate. He said again, his voice betraying no fear or doubt. Somewhere in the leaves of the trees, a certain blonde clenched his fists. Kakari was lucky that an ink blue-haired girl besides him held him back. So, Kakari-sama, when do we strike? Another man asked. Kakari grinned evilly. Tonight, at nightfall. At the first chance you get, you strike. Try to get them in a desolated area. Do not fail. We don't have time for another shot. Now go. He shouted, and they all bowed and vanished, jumping quickly away. Kakari smiled proudly at himself. Soon he turned around and left. Naruto and Hinata jumped down from the tree they were hiding. Damn bastard, he hissed, and Hinata frowned, hugging him from behind. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. They will be in big surprise when the time comes, she said, thinking the last part, but he heard it. He nodded and turned around to kiss her forehead. Let's go then, we don't have anything to do here. He said. She looked down nervously though. Shouldn't we tell Hokage-sama? She asked softly. He placed an arm on her shoulder and gave her another kiss on the forehead. You're right. Car-san will love to hear the news. He said cheerfully, and she smiled at his returned normal attitude. Let's go. He said and grabbed her hand, happily running towards the Hokage Tower, her trailing behind. Slowly entering the Hokage's office, they found Tsunade speaking with a rather amused Hiashi, though he seemed emotionless. Both adults turned to look at the two teens that entered the room. Hinata, Hiashi said seriously. She bowed slightly. Otu-san, she replied. Naruto grinned widely, raising a hand in greeting. Hi there, Hiashi-sama, Tsunade Bar-chan. He said cheerfully, remembering to call Tsunade Bar-chan in front of people, until the announcement was made, of course. Hiashi nodded, though he didn't really like the disrespect of the boy. Tsunade smirked, wanting to throw him a book or something, but since Hiashi was here, it wouldn't be appropriate. Hinata looked concerned, noticing the irritation from the adults. She turned to look at Naruto with worried eyes. Naruto-kun, you should try to be more formal, she said worriedly. He just kept grinning though, still looking at the adults. Don't worry, Hinata-chan. Car-san loves me too much to me, yet. He answered, and a giggle could be heard. Looking at Hinata, outwardly she was just smiling. So, Naruto, what do you want? I'm in the middle of something important, so be quick, Tsunade said, snapping both teens back to reality. Tsunade-sama, I'd like to speak in private, Naruto said seriously. Tsunade knew better. If Naruto was serious, then it was serious. Hiashi, can you please give us a moment? She asked the man across her desk seriously. He looked at her emotionlessly and nodded. Anyone could tell he didn't like it one bit though. Passing by Naruto, he shot him a glare, which only Hinata noticed and looked down worriedly. Maybe her family didn't really like her to be with him. Her father never really approved, even if he trusts Naruto at some extent. Hanabi, her sister, didn't seem to like it either, since she had the cold attitude of her father. When Hiashi left, Naruto was looking at Tsunade, seriously. So what is it, Naruto? She asked, placing her hands on her desk. He sighed. Car-san, he said, pointing Hinata with his hand. Overheard a conversation Kakari had with a group of men, he added. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, and she asked, motioning him to continue. He sighed again. He wants to take Hinata away, for experiments on her bloodline, he said, and looked sadly down. Tsunade raised both eyebrows. What? She snapped. Naruto looked up at her again, and Tsunade looked furious. Damn that bastard. I knew we couldn't trust him, she shouted. Naruto kept staring at her. Seriously, he plans to attack today, at nightfall. Tsunade looked up, and by seeing Naruto's face, she knew he was determined. Do you have something in mind? She asked. He nodded. Tonight, we are going for dinner with Sakura-chan and Sasuke. I will tell them to hang around with us somewhere in Konoha. If they attack, we will be more than ready, he said, punching the air in front of him. Tsunade sighed. She hoped she could trust him. I see. Well, if that's all, you can go. Oh, and try to catch Kakari alive if he's involved, she said. Both teens nodded. Naruto, be careful. So you never know what can happen, she said seriously, and he nodded again. Understood. So, Hinata-chan, let's find Sakura-chan and Sasuke team, he shouted happily. Before Hinata could protest or even flinch, he scooped her in his arms and jumped on the window with a stunned Hinata in his arms. See you later, Car-san, he said happily, and jumped out, making Hinata grab him with all her strength. Tsunade could hear a fading Naruto as they fell. She sighed and smiled. The boy had taken the habit from Jiraiya to leave from the window, so nearly always it was open. Landing lightly on the ground, he placed Hinata on her feet. Cool, eh? He asked cheerfully. She looked at him a little stunned. It was the first time she fell from a window like that. Why yeah, she said, still shocked a little. Naruto just smiled. Oh, don't worry. I'm doing it all the time. No danger at all. Unless you fall with the head, he said, trailing off and looking down at the last words, earning some giggles from her. He looked up and grinned widely. Okay, let's go. We need to find the other two, he said, and by grabbing her hand, they were off. Meanwhile, a certain pink-haired kunoichi walked around the streets of Konoha. Every time since she told Sasuke, who now walked next to her, he shivered when she glared at him. Reason? Well, let's just say that what Naruto said to Sakura hit a certain Sasuke spot. Thought he made her swear not to tell anyone a word about it. I sent Sakura-chan around the corner. Let's play, Naruto said, and Hinata turned around the other corner so she could come from behind. Giggles and chuckles could be heard in their minds. They loved to play the actors in front of their friends, and they were really good. Oi! Sakura-chan! Sasuke team! Naruto shouted, waving his hands towards the pair and grinning widely. Sakura twitched an eyebrow. Naruto. Stop being so loud. Sakura shouted back while Sasuke let out a small, "HN. I heard you too, Naruto-kun," said a giggling Hinata in his mind. Naruto frowned at her inwardly, but smiled. They could contact each other if they weren't more than a few 100 feet apart. So, the Dobe finally goes out with Sakura, Sasuke said, placing his usual smirk. Sakura had told him her plan, and he would give everything in the world to enjoy the sight. Yeah, but you are coming too, and so is Hinata-chan. Naruto said cheerfully, placing his arms behind his head and laughing. Sasuke just mumbled a "Dobe," and Sakura just smiled. Suddenly a smiling Hinata was passing by. Oi, Hinata-chan. Over here. Naruto shouted, waving a hand at her. She smiled before she turned around to look at him, pretending a shocked look with wide eyes accompanying. "NN Naruto-kun," she said timidly, and slowly walked towards them. "Hi," she said smiling at the other two. Sasuke made his usual smirk while Sakura smiled. They spent a few hours walking around Konoha, beating up a few thieves and relaxing at a park. Naruto lied down at the grass, his hands behind his head as a pillow, his sight lost in the clouds. Hinata sat next to him, her knees close to her chest, her hands hugging them, and she too looked up at the clouds. Sakura was having a pointless argue with Sasuke about something. Pointless it was, because Sasuke always gave short and not really revealing answers. "I haven't seen most of our friends for a while," Naruto said. Hinata nodded mentally. "Well, most of them are out training or on missions," she said. There were C-rank missions that required escorts, so some of their friends were out of the village. Naruto slowly stirred his sight from the clouds to the girl next to him. He couldn't help but smile and stare at her form, bathed in the light of the sun through the leaves of the tree above them. Her hair seemed to sparkle while her skin seemed to light up. She had taken off her jacket, with much of Naruto's help of course, since she was quite shy to take it off in public. He couldn't help but admire Kami's work on her. That damn jacket hid nearly all of her upper body, hiding such perfect curves. He turned around to look at the clouds again before any perverted thought could reach his mind, though he couldn't help but take a glance here and there at her. She felt much better without her jacket. It was a rather hot day and the jacket made her feel uncomfortable. She didn't feel very well exposing herself though. She was used to wearing it, but with a little mental persuasion from Naruto, she took it off and had it lying next to her. The light breeze now made more contact with her, letting her feel all its coolness in this rather hot day. Now she wore her usual blue long shorts, and the usual kunoiki net shirt which covered the top of her body. Out ofn, have you ever seen Shippuden Hinata without her jacket? Man. Of course she had her high-tie 8 forehead protector, tied on her end to hide that was much thinner and much more well-curved without the jacket, and she knew Naruto admired it, much. She blushed lightly at the last thought. So, one more hour went by at the park. Naruto admiring Hinata's body, Hinata doing the same to him, Sakura arguing with Sasuke, Sasuke ignoring her or giving short and unrevealing answers. The sun had begun to set now and orange light had once more started to bath the land. "Yosh! Time for dinner," Naruto shouted, standing up and punching the air. Sasuke smirked, and both Hinata and Sakura smiled. Hinata stood up and tied her jacket around her waist. "Better not ramen, Naruto-kun," she said. He turned to look at her with pleading eyes, when Sakura and Sasuke weren't looking of course. "Oh, come on Hinata-chan. You're taking my life away," he said, and she giggled mentally while smiling outwardly. "Ramen is the most important thing in your life?" she asked and pretended a hurt and sad expression. He grinned widely. "Yep. Second best," he said, and gave her a quick kiss on the forehead when Sakura and Sasuke had turned around to walk down the street to a nearby restaurant. Hinata smiled. She wanted to hug and kiss him, badly. They reached a nearby restaurant and found a table for four near the wall. The seats were like a round high-back couch with a round table in the middle. They all sat down, Sakura between Sasuke and Naruto with Hinata at his right. He couldn't stand the feeling of having her so close, yet being unable to touch her or hug her. It was he had to endure for now though. "So Dobe, how you managed to order something else than ramen?" I swear, one day, you will s by drowning in a bowl of it. Sasuke said when the waiter left with their orders and smirked, expecting Naruto to start protesting, but it never came. Naruto just started laughing, yeah, kinda silly. But you never know, he said, rubbing the back of his head. Just watch out, team, when you kiss Sakura, mind to breath afterwards, eh? He said teasingly, making both of them turn a slight shade of red. Sasuke's barely noticeable, of course. HMPH, what makes you think I want to kiss her, Dobe? You're the one with the affection, Sasuke threw back, smirking. Naruto just kept grinning, of course, and that's when Sasuke noticed a smiling Hinata behind him. He knew the girl had a crush on him, but she didn't seem to be affected by the conversation. Instead, she seemed to enjoy it. I wouldn't mind to kiss Sakura-chan. But, I know I'll never do it because I'll earn a good punch in the face afterwards. But, I think I know some people who wouldn't punch me for doing that, he said and raised his hand on his chin while looking up, pretending to be in thought. Hinata played her own role, of course, playing with her index fingers and looking down. Thankfully, the bangs of her hair hid the smile that was plastered all over her face, and the slight blush. Sasuke, turning to Sakura, noticed her shocked face. He smirked, "What's up, Sakura? Jealous Naruto won't kiss you?" He teased and she looked back at him angrily, "Of course not." She shouted, clearly annoyed. But that made Sasuke smirk even more. "Yep, of course not, what was I thinking? By the way, I can hardly imagine anyone who could make it to kiss the Dobe. Hinata's too shy to do it and the Dobe is too dense," he said while thinking the last part to himself. To his surprise, Naruto kept smiling. "Nah, I can think of someone," he said, smiling even more widely while Hinata pretended a sad expression behind him. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. When he was ready to speak again, the waiter came with their orders. They all ate in silence for a little before Sakura broke it. "So, Naruto, anything up with Hinata?" she asked teasingly while poking his ribs. Hinata gasped while Naruto kept smiling. He could feel her wide-eyed stare from behind him while he looked at Sakura. "Hinata. Oh come on. We're just friends. I remember the last time I pretended that," he said, thinking the last part to Hinata who mentally nodded. "It's okay Naruto-kun, I know," she said. He turned his head to look at her who smiled a sad smile. Sasuke raised an eyebrow again. Hinata's reaction was too calm. He expected her to turn around and fight to hold tears or something, but there she was, smiling at the Dobe. Either he was lying, or she was a very good actor. If he knew the blonde Barker well enough, it should be the last. Still, oi, team. Wake up, Naruto said and Sasuke realized he was lost in a trance. "Yeah, sorry. It's just I'm not used to Hinata without a jacket," he lied, though it was true at a point, since Hinata was always with her jacket. Hinata blushed and Naruto frowned. That made both their friends raise their eyebrows. Naruto frowned. "For what?" You're right," Naruto suddenly said and grinned widely. They relaxed at this. So the night went on. Sakura and Sasuke were teasing the best they could the two friends, but they were surprised at the cool and straight responses they were given, as if their teases were nothing. Strangely enough, Naruto did nothing stupid. There was a time or two that he was ready to do something. Sakura had her fists ready in excitement, but right when they believed he would screw up, he stopped all motion and sat back down, grinning as always. So, they continued with Sakura unable to throw even a punch and Sasuke feeling a little tense at the Dobe's sudden awareness. When they were finished and out of the restaurant, the night sky had settled for good. Naruto suggested taking a walk around before heading back home. They agreed, since the night was more than comfortable for a walk. Naruto had his senses stretched for anything unusual, and Hinata silently activated her Byakugan at times. When nothing came, they sat down at the park they were before at the center of town. The night was cool and dark, the streets barely lightened by the road lights. The sky was full of stars and the moon was bathing the land with its pale light. A beautiful night indeed. Naruto lied down once more to look at the starry night with his hands behind his head. Sakura and Hinata soon joined him, while Sasuke just leaned on a tree next to them, watching the stars himself. Hinata sat on Naruto's right, taking the same pose she had a few hours ago, and Sakura sat on his left, her hands supporting her body weight while she stretched her legs forward. "Hey Hinata-chan, can you use Byakugan once more? It is dark, I don't think they will see, he said, and Hinata agreed. She whispered, Byakugan, and she started scanning the area. After a few seconds, she spotted many ninjas hiding on the rooftops around the park. She nearly gasped but held it back. She deactivated her bloodline and turned her head to worriedly look at Naruto, who kept staring at the stars. Naruto-kun, there are around 20 of them spread on the rooftops. Kakarei is there too, Hinata said, and Naruto frowned. Sakura noticed it and looked worriedly at her two friends. Is there something wrong? She asked quietly. Naruto sat up and nodded. Yeah, there are hostile ninjas around. Not sure why they are here though, he lied at the last part, but Sakura believed him. Sasuke, who heard the conversation, stood ready, his fingers flinching for his weapons. Soon they all got up, and Naruto, before anyone could flinch, threw a kunai straight at one of the ninjas, hitting him on the T and leaving him on the floor. All the other ninjas blinked in confusion at the speed. Come out wherever you are, Naruto singed in a calm, mocking voice, sending shivers down the hostile ninjas' spines. One of them jumped right into the middle, kunai in hand and the other making one-handed seals. Well, that was all he managed to do. Before he could finish the seal sequence, he was espered from behind by a pissed Sasuke. When the ninja hit the ground, next? Sasuke sarcastically asked. All the ninjas now jumped out of their hiding spots, facing the small group. Sasuke got out another kunai and now he held one in each hand. Sakura cracked her knuckles, preparing her fists. Naruto slipped into a fighting stance, one leg stretched forward with the other behind ready to kick, fists risen for defense, and Hinata slipped into her new Hojuken stance. Naruto then started whispering a plan to his friends, and the other ninjas could only stare since they couldn't hear nothing more than a mumble. Enough of this. Attack! One of them shouted, but by the time he said it, the others were already prepared. The ninjas charged and surrounded the group, each one attacking, one after the other. Soon, they were all locked in combat. Hinata and Naruto minded not to use their QB power. After a few minutes, the first of the opposite ninjas started to fall, one by one. Sasuke dodged several punches and kicks from 3 ninjas at once. Parrying a ninja with a kunai, he threw his left weapon at one of the other charging ninjas, hitting S center between the eyes. Reversing, he pushed the offender with the kunai back and while twisting to make a round low kick, he threw his remaining kunai at the other oncoming opponent, killing him in an instant. Soon, the kick landed, swiping the ninja of his feet. Sasuke jumped and landed a kick from above at the ninja's N. He smirked, hearing a satisfying crack. Sakura kept dodging with ease the clumsy attacks of her opponents. She had 5 ninjas on her, but they all sucked. One launched a punch on her face, and she only grabbed his arm, twisted it and defended against a heavy kick with his body. With one tap on a nerve, he was unconscious. Finally, she got bored with this fools and punched the ground as hard as she could, creating a large rumble of stone and broken ground all around her wake. The ninjas were either thrown at nearby building walls or crushed under flying rocks. Hinata had been fighting alongside Naruto the 12 remaining ninjas. They were using their mental connection to fight like a very experienced couple of fighters, each one reacting to each other's moves and covering each other's weaknesses. Hinata ducked and Naruto placed his hand on her back to support his weight. He jumped above her and rammed a Rasengan into one of the ninja's chest, sending him flying against another one. Hinata used her normal Juken style after Naruto told her the plan. Exposing her full powers would be unwise, you know. The opponents were hardly a challenge. She rammed palm strikes on their chests after dodging kicks and punches with her Byakugan at full activation. After a few minutes, she launched a final palm strike at the last of the ninja's chest, letting him hit the ground. Alright guys, now comes the final part, Naruto whispered to his friends as they rounded up. HMPH, this guy's a weak, Sasuke said, clearly bored. Yeah, they weren't a challenge at all, Sakura said, looking down disappointed. Well, I got pretty tired, used too much chakra I think, said Hinata, pretending to pant a little. Well, sit at the bench, Hinata-chan. We're gonna take a look around. You never know, there might be more of them, Naruto said cheerfully, and Hinata nodded in agreement. She sat silently on the bench while the others were spread around the streets checking for additional threats. She leaned back on the bench, breathing a sigh of nervousness while looking at the stars. Suddenly, she felt a presence. Soon, 2 arms walked around her, one keeping her mouth shut and the other holding her hands together behind her back. Shut up and come with me, the man whispered, more commanding than asking. She obeyed silently with a nod. Chakra bind no jutsu, he whispered with one-handed seals, and she felt all her normal chakra bound, useless. He leapt away with a weakened Hinata in his arms, jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Soon, he reached a rather desolate area of the village, and entered an abandoned-looking home. Inside, he shoved her on his shoulder and slowly walked towards a slightly lightened table. So, you managed to bring her. Good, a male voice said. The KPER nodded. Yeah, it wasn't that hard. Though I lost 20 men for this the man said and clenched his fist. Oh, don't you worry. The reward will be more than enough. The other man said, and he seemed to smile evilly behind the shadows. I know. Still, that demon brat and his friends will look for her, the male said again, a hint of fear evident. The other man seemed to smirk, sending a shiver down the caper's spine. You worry too much, don't you? He said, sounding rather amused. He chuckled. Don't you worry, He was cut mid-sentence by a heavy bang on the door. Looking at it, his eyes widened. Naruto had kept mental contact with Hinata the whole time. He could even sense her out of a whole crowd, let alone in the empty streets of the now sleeping Konoha. He had told Sasuke and Sakura to go inform Tsunade, for he had to do something special, which needed none of them around. Sakura protested while Sasuke seemed cool and annoyed as always, but in the end he managed to convince them to go. After a few minutes, he found himself at a desolate neighborhood of Konoha. Looking around, he sensed Hinata in one of the buildings. Dashing quickly, he brought the door down with a fist charged with red chakra. Both men looked stunned at the sight before them. Naruto stood at the entrance of the door, his blood-red eyes with pupils burning through the darkness, and a smirk showing his sharp canines was evident on his face, sending shivers down both of their spines. The demon. The male managed to say. Naruto burst in a rather evil laughter. Not quite, Kakarei, he said in his demonic voice. Kyuubi loved this trick, the man proclaimed as Kakarei seemed to shiver even more. You mess with Hinata-chan, you mess with me. And I am your worst nightmare, Naruto said, piercing Kakarei with his red eyes. Although it was dark, his enhanced vision could see straight into the fear in Kakarei's eyes. There's no saving you now. No boasting or bragging will help. And Hinata's K attempt is more than enough to K you, said Naruto and licked his lips in anticipation. Kakarei shivered once more. What do you mean attempt? He asked nervously. The other man was still looking stunned at the semi-demon Naruto. After a few seconds, Kakarei felt a powerful chakra burst from his shoulder, sending him flying on the wall. Looking up and groaning in pain, he saw Hinata, with glittering blood-red eyes. Hinata had been awake all the time. Him binding her normal chakra would make it even easier to use the demonic one. All went as planned. Her friends pretended to leave her alone in order to lure Kakarei to attempt AK, since she proclaimed she was tired. He fell right into the trap, guiding her and Naruto at the headquarters of his operations. Now that he tried to K her, she had a hell of a good reason to kick his sorry ass. What the hell is going on? He yelled and Hinata smiled innocently. Why, don't you love my eyes? She asked, her voice merged with Kyuubi's. The demon inside them had burst into laughter. He was really glad he taught this little trick to this too. She giggled at the scared-sless expression on Kakarei's face. What the hell have you done to the heiress, you bastard demon? Shouted the man from the other side of the room, looking stunned as Hinata turned her head to look at him with her blood-red eyes. No, he turned her into a demon, she said, and Hinata burst out laughing along with Naruto. Oh, you guys are so funny. Hinata-chan is as much of a demon as I am, Naruto said in his normal voice, continuing to laugh, but Hinata managed to just giggle. Well, since you won't leave this place alive, I'll just tell you that Kyuubi felt quite generous and wanted to share, Naruto said, and chuckled. Anno, Naruto-kun, can I take Kakarei? Hinata pleaded. Oh, come on Hinata-chan. Naruto said, clearly disappointed, but he couldn't help but succeed at her pleading puppy red eyes. Okay, just leave some for me will ya? He said and kissed her on the cheek, earning a giggle. Okay, she said and turned back to Kakarei. Wait, what the hell? You can't do this, Kakarei shouted, fear evident on every word. Hinata frowned. Yes I can and yes I will, she said in her demonic voice. Kakari did the only thing he could right now, he run for his money. Naruto sighed, okay, go get him girl. Oh, and leave something for me too okay. He said, and Hinata smiled, nodding in agreement. After a second and a burst of red chakra, she was off, hot on Kakari's tail. Now, where were we? Naruto said back in his demonic voice, and looked down at the shivering and trembling man. WW, what have you done? You turned our heiress into a demon, you demon brat. He hissed and Naruto frowned, badly, your heiress. So, you're a Hyuga, eh? Good, I'll save some of your ass for Hiashi to deal with, he said and charged towards him. He activated his Byakugan just in time to escape a strike in the face. Jumping out of the way, he landed on the table and prepared to strike with his Juken. Naruto laughed, Juken, eh? Cool. Time to try my new shield, he said, and the cloak of the fox rose, engulfing him in a cloak of red chakra in the shape of a fox, one tail swinging around him this time, the others still unlocked. The man lunged towards him and stroked him with plenty of Juken strikes. A few seconds after he finished, he looked at him wide-eyed. Naruto hadn't moved at all since the moment the man began attacking, he didn't even try to dodge or parry his attacks. He just stood there. Seeing his shocked expression, he began laughing, that was funny, you really thought normal chakra could harm me? Come on, the only Juken user that can touch me is Hinata-chan. So, where were we again? He said, tilting his head to the right. After a second, he launched at the man with blinding speed, and before he could flinch, a strike connected with his face. You won't stop her, demon. She will take you down, the man said before slipping into unconsciousness, leaving a confused Naruto behind. Kakari in the meantime kept running and jumping from rooftop to rooftop, trying to avoid the king intent radiating behind him. Hinata knew Kakari had no chance of escape. Her red chakra boosted her speed to far greater limits than the normal one did. So, she just relished the moment, wanting to cause Kakari as much agony as possible. Maybe the red chakra made her a little more aggressive. Finally, Kakari found himself in front of the Hokage Tower, where sadly for him, stood Sasuke and Sakura. He rushed towards them and hid behind Sakura. Please. Help me. That demon whore is trying to kill me. Kakari pleaded and both teens looked up. Hinata noticed Sakura and Sasuke long before Kakari did thanks to her demon-enhanced Byakugan. She decided that letting them know of her new powers was out of question for now. She drove the red chakra back and unbounded her normal one with its help. Soon, she jumped from the final rooftop, landing a few meters away from her friends. Oi, Hinata, you managed to get away? Sakura asked worriedly. Hinata approached, smiled and nodded. Hi, Naruto-kun came just in time. It was so much fun. Hinata chirped happily. Sasuke and Sakura looked between them, and then shoot a worried looks at the girl. Ano, Hinata, are you okay? Sakura asked again. Hinata just nodded, better than ever. She said and looked down behind Sakura at the wide-eyed and shivering Kakari, help me. That demon whore tried to kill me. She wants to kill me, I tell you. He shouted, pointing a finger at Hinata. What? Hinata, what demon whore? Hinata's our friend, you stupid moron. Sakura shouted and a heavy punch in the face sent Kakari flying on the wall. Sasuke in the meantime was enjoying the show. Hinata, what happened? And who's the fool? He asked seriously. Hinata smiled, my future husband from the arranged marriage, and my previous KPER. She said happily. Sasuke stared at her wide-eyed and then glared angrily at Kakari, oh good. Then please let me give you my wedding present, Sasuke said, smirking widely. Kakari managed to raise his head and look at them wide-eyed, what? You're friends with that demon? Somebody help me. They're all crazy. He shouted, clearly scared. Oh, this will be fun, said a voice behind them. They all turned to look at a widely grinning, red-eyed Naruto. Naruto, Sakura said in disbelief. Hey Sakura-chan. Yeah, you already know about Kyuubi, don't you? Naruto said happily. Sakura kept staring at him wide-eyed. Oh, wait, Kyuubi. Exclamation mark quote. She asked, still shocked. Of course, Naruto said in his demonic voice seriously. Suddenly a punch landed on top of his head. Barker. Stop acting cool with the red eyes and help us kick this guy's ass. Sakura shouted while Naruto was rubbing the top of his head. Okay, could we K him please? You know, the punishment for caping and especially the Hyuga heiress is death, eh? So, we just bring justice a little sooner. Naruto said cheerfully and punched the air in front of him. Dobe, for one moment I thought you tried to copy the Sharingan with the red eyes of yours, said a smirking Sasuke. Shut up team. My eyes are cooler than yours. Naruto said back in his normal voice. Sasuke then flashed his Sharingan. Nope. They aren't, he said back. Naruto frowned. Yes they are. He protested and so they went on for several minutes arguing whose eyes were cooler. In the meantime, Kakarei was just looking at him, stunned. They knew that their friend had a demon in him, and they just acted like nothing out of the ordinary happened. Were they all crazy? He saw it as an attempt to run, but when he stood up, Hinata used Juken strikes to close the tenketsus in Kakarei's feet, rendering him unable to move. She sighed and turned around to look at Sakura who supported Sasuke's eyes coolness. Sakura-chan, Sasuke-san, don't you have anything with Naruto-kun being the vessel of Kyuubi? She asked worriedly, and that drove everyone's attention, including Kakarei's. Nope. Why should we? Even with a powerful demon in him, he's still a Dobe, Sasuke said, smirking and pointing a finger at a fuming Naruto. Shut up, boy. You don't have to live in the kid's mind, not that you can call this empty space a mind though, Naruto said in a clear Kyuubi voice. Shut up, fur ball. Anyway, that was Kyuubi. He pleaded all the way to spit an insult or something for several minutes now. God, he's annoying, Naruto said in his normal voice now, and they all burst out laughing. Sakura knew about Kyuubi from the time Naruto had lost control over Four Tails at the bridge battle with Captain Yamato and Sai. She was amazed though at the control Naruto now held over the powers. And the demon himself seemed more friendly than she expected. Sasuke also knew about the demon. There was a time when Naruto faced him for the first time after 3 years, and it was then that he saw the demon with his Sharingan, and suppressed the power. But now, he couldn't do a thing at Naruto. He thought of using his Sharingan to bind the demon's power, but to his shock, nothing happened. Naruto explained the situation with Kyuubi's death, his new bloodline, and Kyuubi's return. He didn't say a thing about Hinata's power though. Kakarei kept staring wide-eyed. They were talking like nothing had changed at all. So, what are we going to do with this guy over here? Naruto said, pointing a finger at Kakarei. He's the one that tried to take Hinata away in order to K her to take her blood limit. Sasuke asked. Naruto and Hinata nodded. Now all of them walked up to Kakarei who was sitting helplessly on the ground. Suddenly, a female figure appeared above the wall. Tsunade-bar-chan. Weren't you home? Naruto asked in disbelief. Oh, don't worry, brat. I've been here for quite some time, listening to you brats. I must agree with Kyuubi though, she said and chuckled. Naruto was ready to protest, but another thought crossed his mind. Hey, Bar-chan. What are we gonna do with the fool here? Naruto asked, pointing a finger at the wide-eyed Kakarei. Tsunade waved a hand in the air. Do as you please. I just came to watch, she said. Kakarei's breath was caught in his N. What? Hokage-sama, this demon brat is trying to K me. He shouted. Tsunade frowned. That demon brat is my son, she said, and all of their eyes went wide once more. Not in blood, but he's my son, she added, and the teens nodded in agreement while Kakarei kept staring. Anyway, go on, you can do anything you want with him. I'll just sit back and relax, Tsunade said and sat on top of the wall. They all turned to look at the scared Kakarei. Naruto took a step back. Last first, he said, offering Sakura to go first. She nodded and approached. She cracked her knuckles. Naruto smirked. If Sakura cracked her knuckles, you should get ready for lots of pain. Personal experience speaking here. She grabbed Kakarei from the N, rose him to eye level and sent him flying on a wall at the opposite street with a heavy punch in the face. My turn, Sasuke said, raising his hand and walking forward before Naruto could protest. Damn team, he mumbled, and Hinata couldn't help but giggle. Sasuke approached slowly, somehow painfully, towards the now lightly bleeding Kakarei. He rose the red-dressed man again and turned to look at his friends. He threw a smirk Naruto knew all too well. When Sasuke smirked like that, it meant you were less likely to get out of there alive. I heard you love your hair, Sasuke stretched his free hand, and a weak chidori formed. The ball of burning lighting flew around Kakeru's head with blinding accuracy. When it was over, Kakeru was a completely hairless man. My hair. He screamed in agony, making Sasuke smirk more. This one's fun. Naruto, your turn, he said and threw Kakeru at Naruto, who stopped him from falling with one hand. You must be uncomfortable in this clothes. Here, let me help you, he said, his blood-red eyes looking Kakeru up and down as he held him up with his one hand. He raised his free now clawed hand and shredded Kakeru's top to pieces, earning a very delightful groan and curse from the man. Damn you. You monster. I will avenge you for this. You destroyed my clothes. You will not get away that easily. Kakeru screamed, earning an evil laughter from Naruto. Boy, I love playing with the mixed voice, Naruto said in his demonic tone, sending shivers down Kakeru's spine. Hinata-chan, he's all yours, he said and pushed him towards Hinata, landing on his knees. Kakeru-kun, let me give you my own wedding present, my beloved husband, she whispered the last part in his ear in her demonic voice, sending another shiver down to him. With a strike at all his tenketsus, Kakeru was nothing but an motionless doll now, barely having the power to move. He's alive and conscious. Sasuke-san, can you do me a favor? Let him have some eye contact with you please, Hinata asked softly, and Sasuke smirked knowingly. He walked towards Kakeru's body. Lifting him up, he flashed his Sharingan eyes, burning a crimson red with three blade-like pupils swirling around the normal one. When Kakeru's eyes made contact with his, he didn't even scream before he hit the ground. Sasuke smirked again, happy to use his Mangekyo Sharingan for the first time. This was the ultimate genjutsu. It trapped one in a blood-red colored world, reliving his worst memories or making up trip through the one's fears. It was the ultimate torturing technique, though it could easily KO a weakened opponent. To awaken this Sharingan, however, you had to KO your brother or your closest friend, and Sasuke did the former at the battle with Itachi. Mangekyo execution sound good, Tsunade said, having watched the whole thing. She was rubbing her chin with her free hand as if in deep thought. Sasuke was smirking, and the other three were smiling, Naruto having returned to normal. So Dobe, that's why everyone in the village hates you. Damn, couldn't they find a lamer excuse? Sasuke hissed, referring to the Kyuubi powers of course. Naruto frowned. Yeah, he said calmly. Still, you're a Dobe, Sasuke added with his usual smirk. Naruto looked up and grinned widely. And you're a team, he said cheerfully. HMPH, was Sasuke's reply as he turned around and started to walk away, Sakura following swift as she waved goodbye at Naruto and Hinata. So, I think you two should go home. I'll take care of the corpse, Tsunade said, giving a grin and lifting the lifeless body on her shoulder. The teens nodded with a smile and flew off towards Naruto's apartment. When they entered, they sat on the couch. Naruto explained about the Hyuga traitor and that he had dropped him at the compound, letting the Hyugas deal with him. Hinata couldn't help but kiss him all around, for now she was not forced to marry someone. Of course, the people would just know that Kakeru SD, not how and from whom. Both the Konoha and the Hyuga Council would be displeased of course, but Hinata and Naruto could care less. Soon, they went to bed after taking turns in the shower. This time, she was the first to enter the bed, with him following swift after a bath. They both wore Naruto's black t-shirts, which Hinata had made her sleeping clothes. She looked so cute in his clothes by his opinion, and couldn't help but give a goodnight kiss on the forehead at the girl next to him. She of course, was snuggled next to him and on him, her head lying on the second best for her pillow, his chest. She loved his heartbeat to be the last thing she heard before shifting back in the emerald dream, him following swift in the peaceful slumber. Somewhere outside his apartment, a certain Hyuga traitor was lurking around. Soon, I'll find you demons and lock you up where no soul will find you. I will cleanse the village from your stain, he thought while vanishing in the shadows. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.